Size super simple recipes. Number 10. Leek and potato soup with a twist. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to make a really traditional Welsh soup of leek and potatoes. But I'm going to give it a bit of a twist in two ways. One is I've got some chunk beef here which I'm going to add to the soup. And the other thing is, these have been given to me by my father-in-law from his garden, and they're really, really nice onions. But I've asked him to leave some of the stem on, and what we're going to do is cut the stem off and use these exactly the same way as we would use leek. If you haven't got any leeks, you can just make it with onion. And I'll start prepping. The base for our soup is going to be some mashed potatoes, the thickening agent. I'll show you how to do that. I'm doing these videos mostly to save my sanity, and they're not really aimed at people who already know how to cook. They're aimed at people who wouldn't know what to do with that if they bought it in the supermarket, and believe me, there really are people who have no idea. So I'll prep some of this, but I'll show you first how I'm going to prep these onions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just remove these stalks. Now, leeks have got a much more delicate flavour than onion. They're much sweeter. Now, the stems have got a very, very similar qualities. It'll have a slightly more piquant flavour than if you'd used leeks, because obviously these aren't as sweet. But I find it gives a really, really good flavour, and my father-in-law's onions taste far better than anything you could get in the supermarket. So what we're going to then do is simply divide those in half and then slice them up, which is exactly what I would do with leeks for this recipe. And then we'll cook those off and soften them up to give the flavour into the base of the soup. So it's not that difficult. The onions I'll use for a different recipe. They'll pop in the fridge and we'll use them up later. So that bit's pretty straightforward. So I'll start sorting out with potatoes and bits, and I'll come back in a minute. Okay, the first thing I've done, I've got my beef into an oven dish, and I've poured on vegetable stock, which sort of is counterintuitive, but trust me, it really does work. And we're going to put that into a really low oven, 150, for about 2 hours. The beef's quite incidental to the recipe, so you can completely leave it out, especially if you're just making a leek and potato soup. But because this is quite a carb high recipe, so because I'm trying to sort of substitute some of the carbs for protein, this will feed quite a few people when it's finished. So I would have a small bowl of this probably, and the beef is partly there just to fill out the rest of the recipe. This also works quite well with bacon or gammon. So we'll come back in a couple of hours once that's done and start preparing the rest of the soup. I'm aware that there are people in this world who do not know how to make mashed potatoes or what to do with a raw potato. So you peel your potatoes. It's not like it's hard work really. I like my mash to be quite creamy and with as much flavour in it as I can get. So you peel your potato, split your potato, cut it into reasonable sized pieces just means it will cook a little quicker. Sticking whole potatoes in. Right, I'll finish off the other two and then we'll get on with our mash. So the potatoes are now peeled and diced. You can see there's not a huge amount there. Obviously if you're making this for a huge crowd of people you want more potato. And we're not just going to cook them in normal water. I've got here some decent vegetable stock which I've made with a couple of cubes. It's all fine. So take your pan, pop your potatoes in. Give them a quick salt, a little bit of pepper, chuck the stock on, get them up to a boil. Once they're boiling, they're going to take between 20 minutes and even as much as half an hour, because we want them to be at the cracked stage, and I'll show you what I mean by that once they're done. So I'll cook these off and then we'll come back. So our potatoes have been bubbling away on their own for about 25 minutes. See what we've got. So the standard test is to put a sharp knife in, and if they fall off the knife they're done. But I also want them to be at the stage where they'll physically crack open. They're perfect for mashing. But we want to reserve the cooking liquor. So I'm going to strain these. The glasses are steamed up now, I can't see a thing. So that we can reserve that cooking liquor to make the basis for our soup. So, how do you mash potatoes? Honestly, I find it hard to believe people have no idea about this. I'm going to put a knob of butter in there, but you can use margarine. Plenty of salt and pepper, because I find a lot of those instant mashes or the frozen ones taste like fucking shit because they've got no flavour to them. Tiny drop of milk because we've hardly done any mash here. And then get your masher and get on with it. And what we're looking for is reasonably creamy mashed potato. Always test your mash, because if it hasn't got enough flavour in it, I don't know, that's fine. Well seasoned, bags of flavour, nice and soft. So I don't have to use hundreds of pans. We'll now have a look. Lift the mash out into a bowl. We'll give the pan a wipe over with some kitchen roll. That is now going to be our thickening agent. When I normally make this, I normally have leftover mash from the day before from some other dish that we've done. Oh, that's good mash. Right, I'll give the pan a wipe and then we can start on the soup. Okay, so our beef should now be done. Just lift this out. As I say, the beef is incidental to the recipe really, so let's just check it should be nicely tender. Good. There we are. So what we're going to do is, using a slotted spoon, we'll lift out the meat. Now, I'm going to add this stock to the stock we've already got. But obviously, if you're doing this as just a leek and potato soup, you don't need to worry about it. So we can now put that meat aside until we're ready to use it. And we'll just quickly try not to spill it. Add that to the stock we've already got. There we are. Any stock that ends up left over we'll use up for other stuff. Right, in the pan I've got some butter, but you can use margarine or oil, and we're going to really gently start frying off our onions, or if you're doing leek and potatoes it will be your leek. The reason I'm doing these on a slow, gentle heat rather than on a higher heat is that I want them to soften but not actually take on any colour. In fact, I will add a little more oil to that. They might take a couple of minutes, so I'll come back once they're done. Our onions have softened up nicely, so I'm going to lift out just a spoonful, and now we're going to start adding the stock. Don't put too much in at once. We want to get it to a place where it's warming up, a bit bubbly. We're going to start adding the mashed potato a bit at a time. And we're going to dissolve it away into the soup. obviously the more mashed potato we add, the thicker the soup will get, and you can decide how thick or how liquid you want the final result. If it gets a bit too thick, we just add a little bit more of our vegetable cooking liquor. As I say, if you feel it's getting a bit too thick, you can just add a touch more of your stock. And that is your basic leek and potato soup. Wow, which is fantastic. But for me, I'm just going to add in the beef. Give that a bit of a stir in. And then when you decide to serve it, pop it in a bowl and sprinkle a few of your onions on the top as a bit of a garnish. Leek and potato soup with a twist. Wow, that is fab. Job done.